Thank you, Jackie. Welcome, everyone. And now I will welcome our next speaker, Craig Heartwell, CTO at Presidio Federal. Welcome, Craig.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Across government, Agile and DevSecOps are driving software development innovation. The integration of cybersecurity teams continues to be a growing trend, as we know, but really ensuring that cultural and procedural approach sticks is not easy. But Presidio, as I've learned, understands how to build strong cyber teams and maintain that integration across an organization. So Craig, tell us a little bit about your background and what Presidio Federal is up to these days.
Okay, sure, thanks. So me personally, I've been blessed to participate in all sorts of industries and business ventures throughout my career. I've been in tech industry long enough to see the emphasis for talent shift from specialization to generalization, specialization, and back and forth several times. And it's kept, kind of keeps me on the edge, keeps me honest. I've also had the privilege to build many teams and many types of teams. So it's kind of up my alley, building teams and kind of helping bring up the level of excellence with any kind of company. As you noted, I'm currently CTO of Presidio Federal, and we spun off from the Presidio parent company in June to be an independent entity fully focused on the federal government. The time was absolutely perfect. There's not been a more opportune time for good involvement with beefing up the federal government in like 20 years. Security being the bigger driver, cloud being obviously this looming concept across everybody's table. So we're basically transforming from a traditional value-added reseller and digital modernization company to a full services solution provider. And the new senior leadership at Presidio Federal comes from really diverse background. So we got big plans for the future.
Exciting, and definitely is a good time, especially when we're talking about the cybersecurity challenges that we just heard from other leaders this morning. So considering the collaboration and teaming aspect that's been prominent over the past hour, what are your thoughts about what makes a great cybersecurity team?
Okay. So in addition to the security technology skills, cybersecurity teams, it's got to be really fully capable, very multifunctional, diverse, with a lot of broad skills, including some things you might not think about. Development skills, really key nowadays. Analytical skills, very important. And probably the most important is people skills, or what they call soft skills. And we probably talk about that as we get there. So cybersecurity isn't a specific set of things, just like zero trust isn't a product. So it's not a thing, set of things you do or tools you apply or products you produce. It's a function. It must be comprehensive and responsive, yet still flexible and compatible within an organization. In today's world, cybersecurity is probably one of the most fluid and innovative functions within an organization, and it needs to be to kind of keep up with what's happening all the time, not only inside the organization, but threat vectors, changes in technology, everything that's going on. It's also a full-time dedicated independent entity, which is very important to understand because sometimes people try to add cybersecurity as just a glom onto an existing set of roles within a company, and you can't do that. It's a full-time consuming workload, and it has to be the focus of that team. So the team might be new within an organization. Yeah, it's new people, new team, new functionality, but it needs to be culturally integrated into the organization and functionally integrated into the business as a peer function at the level of the value chain for the company.
That integration is definitely important. And you mentioned the culture aspect, which is such a huge deal with cybersecurity. Is it's not a product you buy, as you alluded to. So with that cultural friction that organizations often experience when building such a team, where does that come from, and how do you maneuver that?
It was great to hear that everybody else is talking the same thing when it comes to collaboration being key. Collaboration is like my whole background is kind of collaboration, so I love the whole topic of collaboration. Culture is the real driver here. So the question is really good because we do spend a lot of time thinking about cybersecurity as this protective bubble around an organization when we know for sure that that's not really what it is. A really effective security posture comes from building a culture of security within an organization. So So if you surveyed an entire organization, everyone's going to agree that security is really important. So you say, well, where does the friction come from? The primary source of that friction is actually the culture clash. In any organization of any size, you're going to have distinct cultures in groups and teams and different functional areas. And this tends to create these false dichotomies of us versus them. And it's a natural result in kind of the way the human psyche works, because we're social creatures and we get emotional reward from camaraderie and shared goals. So teams, really natural thing to do. And so you end up with kind of team versus team going on. And that can be a very friendly environment, but in an organization or any business, whether it's government or commercial, it tends to cause, this problem of friction. And it's really inevitable in a new organizational function that has aspects of control or is perceived as adding more work to other people's workloads. And cybersecurity really has the potential for both. So it often falls on the cybersecurity team to infuse that security culture into the organization, which is really a bit of a dilemma, because you're asking the team to establish the basis for success and at the same time kind of go be successful. So you end up with the chicken egg problem. So everyone agrees that security is important, and that's just, kind of mentally acknowledging an obvious issue, but it creates this false sense of achievement. Embracing security as a shared goal and responsibility is a really different matter. Everyone in this forum, would agree that we need fresh air and clean water, but we'd all have different beliefs about how to make that happen, who's responsible for it, and how much we're willing to commit to make it a global reality. And that's kind of the nature of, the fact of security being super important and everybody accepting that, and the reality of making it happen within an organization where you have so many different things going on. So that's where the friction comes from. How do you avoid it? So to avoid a culture clash, and this is true for in any way that you're creating it within an organization, is to create the amount of shared culture across the entire organization, because shared culture fosters excellence, within the teams as a whole, and the individual cultures, teams as units. And they're both extremely important. You don't want everybody, you literally don't want everybody to be the same. But you do want everybody to have a common basis for collaborating, which has been a big theme here across a lot of the discussion that's been had today. So the broad culture has to include innovation, excellence, and diversity. And security is a key component of excellence. So that's kind of how you manifest it within that model of a corporate culture. To create some, security awareness, security mindedness, security sensitivity, and make sure that security is really a very true priority. Sometimes you can impose that as a dogma, but it's really better to cultivate it explicitly and transparently. And that's another aspect of, building good corporate culture, is transparency in what you're trying to achieve. So if I'm going to do this, I go in and I basically just tell people right up front, this is exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's just to make sure that, you don't think I'm trying to play any political game. This is not the time or the place to be political about how you achieve these kinds of things within an organization. So there are really three critical aspects for success to doing this. The first one is horizontal integration, which I'll unpack in a minute. It's a term that doesn't come from the security world, or really even the business world. It comes from M&A. An agile mindset, and that kind of comes from the software world, but it now applies to everything we do. As we've involved, security into DevOps, code sec DevOps, we've also included agility, and the agile mindset is just a way of doing better things inside of all your business. And an affiliated cybersecurity center of excellence is an absolutely essential component. It doesn't have to be something that you build independently with your cybersecurity team, but you need to find one. And the federal government's a really great place to share a cybersecurity center of excellence, because it's the federal government. And they have a lot of initiatives that are very similar. They have a lot of same goals and missions. So it's a shared function that can be very well established within the government. So horizontal integration that I mentioned, it comes from the M&A world, and it's just talking about how you accrete functionality. This is essentially the same functionality you have in your current value chain. So you acquire a company that does the same thing you do. You just get bigger. That's not the context we're working in, but there's some really good techniques and principles you can apply there. And it has to do with recognizing that you're adding this new team at the level of the value chain, which is very important, and figuring out how to make that work. And because the technique for integrating that includes both adding capability that kind of comes from above the current value chain, supports the current value chain, and then embeds itself within the value chain itself. So you can see how that can feel kind of invasive and create this idea of, kind of friction. So, the security team's got to contribute governance, compliance, kind of helping people directly, elevating the workflow, the delivery of everything across the company. The agile mindset, we could spend hours on that, and I won't because I don't have it. Interaction with people over processes, you get value, responsiveness, customer centricity, all those great things. The source of best practices, the center of excellence, is just a really great way to kind of take that burden of establishing the right environment for success from the security team and making it an augmenting function that benefits everybody. But it has its own goals, objectives, and agenda. And those will not typically create friction because they're not an interactive function. They're just a purely support function for the company.
Okay. Well, we are out of time, but thank you so much. That went by fast, but certainly that team aspect and the cultural mindset is really important when we're talking about cybersecurity and how you can do that, even borrowing some lessons from other industries. It was certainly interesting to hear how you're approaching it.
Thanks. Anytime.
Well, now I am going to pass it over to our next panel, and that will be on critical infrastructure security. Thank you.